Welcome back, and today we are going to be taking a look at the Shrams that got changed in the Task Force update. Not much has been added. The patch was about 7 gigabytes and about 6.1 gigabytes of that were probably the Hornet skins. There is not much going on here, but the Shrams got a massive overhaul and are now pretty damn usable. They have a decent amount of range now, and with decent I mean a bit obscene for the maneuverability. Now they still eat flares like nobody's business, but it's a lot better than these guns, because I mean, when you look at these guns, you'll see that they do literally nothing. The Shrams are gonna be your main way of killing people. You don't have flight performance to speak of, your acceleration is subpar, the retention is pretty good, but that's basically about it. It doesn't really go below 600, but keep in mind at 600 this thing turns like a brick. So unless you're fighting a Delta Wing that's trying to full pull raid fight, you are probably not going to be outmaneuvering many vehicles. As you can tell, the Shrams have more range now. They're still pretty damn maneuverable, and they do catch me off guard sometimes. So here we go for the MiG-23. We lock onto him from the side after trying to get a keyboard shot in. We underlead severely. We shoot off the missile. It goes off the screen. I think, well, that's not gonna hit. We relock him and it hits him right up the ass. The main issue is that everyone knows that the Shram is absolutely busted right now. Everyone is trying to play it, and your entire team will consist out of Hunter F6s and Harrier GL1s. And it's incredibly easy to get kills with these Shrams if the enemies don't have flares, and at this BR not many people have flares, so you'll see very often that is going to be an absolute blowout where your team just gets 12 kills and your enemy might get a singular one. Now personally, I'm going to be counter queuing the F6 and Harrier GL1s with a plane with flares and just try to wrap up as many as I can, because honestly they are not a threat if you have flares. That's the caveat to this. The issue is if you don't have flares, or rockets in this case, you are just going to get your ass eaten, and personally I'm not a massive fan of it. A5C comes in and there's not much I can do. I'm only going about 700 IAS that is, so we are just going to keep pulling until my friendly cleans up the mess. Honestly, the Harrier GL1 is going to be better at this playstyle. You don't have flares either, and you might actually turn worse in the long run, but you have a lot of acceleration, meaning that you can just climb the orbit, dive straight down, and just ripple off these missiles, because when you get in range and you get a good aspect, they are going to die. If you're seeing some micro stutters in the background, that's unfortunately the patch going on. I tried some different settings, nothing helped out. You might see some of these here and there. It's not your computer, it's not the software, it is the game itself that I'm recording. It jumped from 200 frames to about 0 for half a second. Rather annoying, but you know, it isn't a watt on the patch without something exploding in the background. The Hunter F6 is rather annoying to play. You have to zip around the battlefield, and with zip I mean kind of crawl, and wait for people to end up in front of you. Now luckily the Shrams actually have a good amount of range now, as you'll see right here. At about 2 kilometers side-ish rear aspect, that is going to reach him absolutely no problem, and he gets sent to the Shadow Realm. We simply dive back into the group and see who we can engage here. A lot of these guys don't actually have flares, so all I really need to do is make sure that I end up in a position like that Ajit on my 6. That guy is going to be an absolute nuisance, so I want to keep my speed here, try to get some separation. But before we do that, I'm going to try to just close in the gap and get these numbers down a little bit. I noticed the F40 presumably on the left. I'm going to go for him first. He's on the 6 of the other one, so if I slot in behind him, I'm going to have no one except for the Ajit on my 6. Get relatively close, shoot off the Shram. At close range, there is absolutely nothing these guys are going to be doing. All you can really do is try to outrun it, or simply try to fool it with a heat signature. It doesn't really matter what you use. I think you can almost flare these things by simply shooting your guns. But really, it doesn't matter if it's a rocket, if it's anything really. It goes for anything. These missiles are incredibly sensitive, and you can tell that when you have the lock circle going on, it is pretty big, and this does not act like an R73 or a Magic, where it clamps down the FOV and acts like an IRCCM. Quite the opposite, it stays rather wide, and then it stays rather wide. It becomes a bit of a gaping hole, and if anything goes inside of it, it will go straight towards it. And most of these engines at this BR are simply not hot enough in order to just track through the flares. The missiles are incredibly sensitive, and there's just not that many afterburning planes with flares going around. So even if they afterburn, it mostly won't even track. But with something like an Ajit, you don't even have to bother launching it. Now he's gonna cancel all around, which is gonna spray a blanket of 30 mils. And luckily, this time around, the guns actually did some damage. Now the MiG-19 starts coming in, and I really wanted to have a funny missile kill here. So we are gonna try to close the gap, we're gonna shoot it, but he breaks off just a little bit too early. Now, unfortunately, my missile is going to track him, but it gives you a bit of a representation how much range they have against someone that's going very quick, and we are going pretty slow. The missile does still spaz out at super low speeds, but as I said, the plane holds 600 rather nicely, and at 600 you should be able to shoot this missile without much issues. There you see another Sraam going to absolute pound town, and it shoves itself up the MiG-19 and sends him also to the Shadow Realm. It's just to really showcase you how much range these things actually have now. You need to be wary of these, and looking at the amount of people using them, I think most of you already are. Now this missile here, I'm not entirely sure why it didn't end up killing him. It just exploded mid-air. What probably happened is he got just past the side aspect, rear aspect-ish, and it loses track. And the second these missiles lose track, they simply explode mid-air. And you really notice it's a rear aspect missile only. If they turn whatsoever, even with an afterburner on, it's very difficult to get a lock on, despite the secret head being so damn sensitive. It's rather annoying, they can turn in pretty late, but that's kind of a good thing because it makes it a little bit more balanced. So really you need to be aware of these planes and never allow them on your 6, or at least not allow them on your 6 while they are close enough or fast enough. Now the issue is that the entire enemy team is going to be in these things, so if you don't have flares and you're thinking about flying anything around 9.7, you're probably better off not doing so. Now if you have flares, you're gonna absolutely pack these guys up. The Hunter F6 and the Harrier GL1 is not really a threat. The flight performance literally doesn't exist. The guns, as you see, don't really do that much and have pretty poor velocity as well as range due to the ballistics. It's a mixed bag. It's really funny to shoot these SRAMs at people. It's kind of funny to climb the orbit, dive in and get a couple of kills, but what ends up happening quite often is that you dive in, they see you last second, they start turning in, and once they start turning in, it's very difficult for you to actually get a lock on. And with the amount of people playing the F6 and the GL1, what ends up happening very often is that, yeah, they all turn, and now your friendly comes in, and he gets 3 of the freest kills imaginable because the enemy shows its 6 towards your friendly. 1.6 kilometer against a MiG-21 going relatively quick. Absolutely no problem anymore. It is absolutely obscene. It's pretty fun to play, but keep in mind the teams are atrocious. Everyone is playing a missile slinger. Everyone is trying to rush in to get the kills as quickly as humanly possible. And very often you'll just end up getting 1, maybe 2 kills, and then the enemy team is dead. Pre-flare the Ajit, he starts coming in. Again, I'm going to be using my teammates because that guy loses so much speed. It's very difficult for me to actually stay out of his gun. Now, if we are alone and I keep pulling, eventually the Ajit will fall behind because the rate on that thing is absolutely terrible. But when you have 20 teammates around, just keep turning. He should die relatively soon. So we are now looking at something that is basically not balanceable. Because we have a missile that if you don't have flares, you essentially just die to it. And I am expecting the Hunter F6 to go up in BR again. These missiles are incredibly potent. And I would like to see them on some better airframes, because then we can actually properly balance them. You can be sneaky and you can try to shoot the missile off. And you don't have to rely on shooting at guys that don't have flares. Because right now you really do. You are simply not in a plane that's good enough to really zip around the battlefield, sneak up on people, try to get some altitude, try to ambush. It's incredibly difficult. The plane isn't fast, it doesn't accelerate that well, and it's incredibly easy to spot because of that. So having to play it as a sneaky kind of assassin type of plane is virtually impossible. It's a bit of a shame, really. Now, if we have these kind of missiles on something like a Tornado, it's going to be the exact same thing, of course, but I would really like to see these missiles from some other aircraft where all the enemies actually have flares and we have it on an airframe that's actually pretty good. And we can not base the BR around the missile performance, but the entire package overall. But that is essentially it. Now, planes like the Su-25, of course, are a relatively fair fight. We do cream it in terms of flight performance, but we do want to be careful when it comes to a low speed dogfight, because they actually turn surprisingly well and their acceleration is also extremely good. You don't actually want to tangle with that thing. Luckily, he's just flying away. He shoots an R60 and the missile manages to go for the AIM-9G, I think, that the Harriers fired. You can tell that the missile is a little bit twitchy. It's a bit on that AZHD pack. Now we rock up on the SU-25. I am not going to be overshooting, so I'm simply going to zero throttle air brake and try to maintain about 400 meters and stay in his control zone. We're then going to pepper him with the guns and do absolutely nothing as per usual. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all tomorrow with another batch video.